Hello, I am doing some voiceover work today and I am going to begin a reading of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Chapter 1 1801. I have just returned from a visit to my landlord, the solitary neighbour that I shall be troubled with. This is certainly a beautiful country. In all England, I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society. A perfect misanthropist's heaven, and Mr. Heathcliff and I are such a suitable pair to divide the desolation between us. A capital fellow! He little imagined how my heart warmed towards him when I beheld his black eyes withdraw so suspiciously under their brows as I rode up, and when his fingers sheltered themselves, with a jealous resolution, still further in his waistcoat as I announced my name. "Mr. Heathcliff," I said. A nod was the answer. "Mr. Lockwood, your new tenant, sir. I do myself the honour of calling as soon as possible after my arrival to express the hope that I have not inconvenienced you by my perseverance in soliciting the occupation of Thrushcross Grange. I heard yesterday you had some thoughts." "Thrushcross Grange is my own, sir," he interrupted, wincing. "I should not allow anyone to inconvenience me." Let me move it a bit closer to me. When I find the right knob to fiddle with, that is. No, no, don't say it. And let's pull this cable back a bit to add some stability to this microphone stand because I've got a feeling, yeah, it's toppling a little bit. Yes. Okay, let's give it another go then. Yeah. So I was about here. I'm. It's going well tonight. I'm doing some reading work. I've been working on my voice a bit. Hey, Foxy, and I'm trying to. What's the best word for it? I'm trying to encompass a whole range of voices. A more feminine sounding voice, and what else was there? Uh, there was a sort of a a voice with a bit more of tilt in it. I think was what my voice coach said. Basically, it would be good to sound feminine when I need to, but also I just want to make loads of different voices, and I thought I'd do a bit of a read today, just to do some vocal practice, really. So that's what I intend to do, and see how I do. And I'm reading from Wuthering Heights. The walk-in was uttered. No, I haven't read that yet. "Thrushcross Grange is my own, sir," he interrupted, wincing. "I should not allow anyone to inconvenience me if I could hinder it. Walk in." The walk-in was uttered with closed teeth and expressed the sentiment, "Go to the deuce." Even the gate over which he leant manifested no sympathizing movement to the words, and I think that circumstance determined me to accept the invitation. I felt interested in a man who seemed more exaggeratedly reserved than myself. When he saw my horse's breast fairly pushing the barrier, he did put out his hand to unchain it, and then sullenly preceded me up the causeway, calling, as we entered the court, "Joseph, take Mr. Lockwood's horse, and bring up some wine. Here we have the whole establishment of domestics, I suppose," was the reflection suggested by this compound order. "No wonder the grass grows up between the flags, and cattle are the only hedge cutters." Joseph was an elderly. It would be good if I could speak properly, wouldn't it? Apparently, I lack that skill at the moment. Joseph was an elderly, nay, an old man, very old, perhaps, though hale and sinewy. "The Lord help us," he soliloquized in an undertone of peevish displeasure, while relieving me of my horse, looking meantime in my face so sourly that I charitably conjectured he must have need of divine aid to digest his dinner, and his pious ejaculation had no reference to my unexpected advent. That's really what it says here. I guess they were as dirty in the 1800s or whenever this was written as they are now. Dearie me. Wuthering Heights is the name of Mr. Heathcliff's dwelling. Wuthering being a significant provincial adjective descriptive of the atmospheric tumult to which its station is exposed in stormy weather. Pure bracing ventilation they must have up there at all times indeed. One may guess the power of the north wind blowing over the edge by the excessive slant of a few stunted firs at the end of the house, and by a range of gaunt thorns all stretching their limbs one way as if craving alms of the sun. Happily, the architect had foresight to build it strong. The narrow windows are deeply set in the wall, and the corners defended with large jutting stones. Before passing the threshold, I paused to admire a quantity of grotesque carving lavished over the front, and especially about the principal door, above which, among a wilderness of crumbling griffins and shameless little boys, I detected the date 1500 and the name Harrington Earnshaw. I would have made a few comments and requested a short history of the place from the surly owner, but his attitude at the door appeared to demand my speedy entrance or complete departure, and I had no desire to aggravate his impatience previous to inspecting the penetralium. I don't know what that means. Do any of us know what the penetralium means? Oh, I've just googled it. It says it's the innermost or most secret part of a building, and in a sanctum sanctorum. So, I guess a kind of holy of holies or something. One step brought us into the family sitting room without any introductory lobby or passage. They call it here the house preeminently. It includes kitchen and parlour generally, but I believe at Wuthering Heights the kitchen is forced to retreat altogether into another quarter. At least I distinguished a chatter of tongues and a clatter of culinary utensils deep within. and I observed no signs of roasting, boiling, or baking about the huge fireplace, nor any glitter of copper saucepans and tin cullenders on the walls. One end, indeed, reflected splendidly both light and heat from ranks of immense pewter dishes interspersed with silver jugs and tankards, towering row after row on a vast oak dresser to the very roof. The latter had never been underdrawn. Its entire anatomy lay bare to an inquiring eye, except where a frame of wood laden with oat cakes and clusters of legs of beef, mutton, and ham concealed it. Above the chimney were sundry villainous old guns and a couple of horse pistols, and, by way of ornament, 3 gaudily painted canisters disposed along its ledge. The floor was of smooth white stone, the chairs high-backed, primitive structures painted green, 1 or 2 heavy black ones lurking in the shade. In an arch under the dresser reposed a huge liver-coloured pitch pointer. So, what? Surrounded by a swarm of squealing puppies, and other dogs haunted other recesses. There were some words that have clearly changed meanings over their time, and yeah. Yes. The apartment and furniture would have been nothing extraordinary as belonging to a homely northern farmer with a stubborn countenance and stalwart limbs set out to advantage in knee breeches and gaiters. I would have to know what it means in modern day before I could do that. I did actually translate one word. Maybe we need to decide on the meaning of everything. And I've lost my place. Oh, there it is. Such an individual seated in his armchair, his mug of ale frothing on the round table before him, is to be seen in any circuit of 5 or 6 miles among these hills if you go at the right time after dinner. But Mr. Heathcliff forms a singular contrast to his abode and style of living. He is a dark-skinned gypsy in aspect, in dress and manners a gentleman. That is, as much a gentleman as many a country squire, rather slovenly, perhaps. You know what "the" means. Okay, good to know. Why does it keep telling me that Cornish is a VIP now? I know Cornish is a VIP. I made Cornish a VIP. And it just keeps on coming up all the time. VIP, 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 VIP. This person is a VIP. I don't know. And how prescient that was actually in the novel itself. Well, not really. Rather slovenly, perhaps, yet not looking amiss with his negligence, because he... oh, Jesus. How can I do this? Because he has an erect and handsome figure and rather morose. Possibly some people might suspect him of a degree of underbred pride. I have a sympathetic chord. I know! I have a sympathetic chord within that tells me it is nothing of the sort. I know, by instinct, his reserve springs from an aversion to showy displays of feeling, to manifestations of mutual kindliness. He'll love and hate equally under cover, and Esteem it a species of impertinence to be loved or hated again. That's the first time I've encountered esteem as a verb. Okay. No, I'm running on too fast. I bestow my own attributes over liberally on him. Mr. Heathcliff may have entirely dissimilar reasons for keeping his hand out of the way when he meets a would-be acquaintance to those which actuate me. Actuate. Okay, alright. What does that... I mean, yes, I know what it means in modern day. Yes, cause a machine to operate. I don't know. Oh dear, this is actually yes, it's an amusing first ever just chatting stream, I must say. Oh dear. Right, let me hope my constitution is almost peculiar. My dear mother used to say I should never have a comfortable home, and only last summer I proved myself perfectly unworthy of one. While enjoying a month of fine weather at the seacoast, I was thrown into the company of a most fascinating creature, a real goddess in my eyes, as long as she took no notice of me. I never told my love vocally. Still, if looks have language, the merest idiot might have guessed I was over head and ears. She understood me at last and looked to return the sweetest of all imaginable looks. Oh God, here we go again. And what did I do? I confess it with shame. Shrunk icily into myself like a snail. At every glance retired colder and farther, till finally the poor innocent was led to doubt her own senses, and, overwhelmed with confusion at her supposed mistake, persuaded her mamma to decamp. To no, we can't just... There's just too much here. Oh. Decamp. I mean, I haven't come across anything that's camp yet, except perhaps me, but by this curious turn of disposition, I have gained the reputation of deliberate heartlessness, how undeserved I alone can appreciate. I took a seat at the end of the hearthstone, opposite that towards which my landlord advanced, and filled up an interval of silence by attempting to caress the canine mother who had left her nursery and was sneaking wolfishly to the back of my legs, her lip curled up and her white teeth watering for a snatch. How how did anyone actually manage to get through doing an actual reading of this book? This is like the actual proper version. But you would think so, wouldn't you? What did I say? I said, and her white teeth watering for a snatch. My caress provoked a long, guttural gnarl. You'd better let the dog alone, growled Mr. Heathcliff in unison, checking fiercer demonstrations with a punch of his foot. She is not accustomed to be spoiled, not kept for a pet. Then, striding to a side door, he shouted again, Joseph! I don't know, I'm just telling you what it says here. This is probably the last stream before I get banned from Twitch, but there we go. There we are. Joseph mumbled indistinctly in the depths of the cellar, but gave no intimation of ascending. So his master dived down to him, leaving me vis-a-vis the ruffianly bitch. Oh, so bitch, female dog. It's used in the female dog sense of the word. Okay. Vis-a-vis the ruffianly bitch and a pair of grim, shaggy sheepdogs who shared with her a jealous guardianship over all my movements. Not. Stop it. Well, why haven't I got chat showing on the screen? I know I haven't got chat. Well, at least I've got the sort of dog-like laugh, the Muttley laugh, down, I suppose. Okay, right. The ruffianly bitch. Why did I pick this song? Oh, it's killing me. How am I gonna get through chapter 1 in this stream? I don't need these glasses on. I need to be able to wipe my eyes rather than wear the glasses. Oh dear. And a pair of grim, shaggy sheepdogs who shared with her a jealous guardianship over all my movements. Not anxious to come in contact with their fangs, I sat still, but imagining that they would scarcely understand tacit insults. The story is called Wuthering Heights. You can get it for free on Gutenberg.org. It's a copyright free. Copyright free book. It's come out of copyright. The song Wuthering Heights is based upon the characters in this book. I unfortunately indulged in winking and making faces at the trio, and some turn of my physiognomy. What the hell does that mean? Okay, here we go again. Physiognomy. A person's facial features or expression, especially when regarded as indicative of character or ethnic origin. Yeah, it's quite possible they made a movie out of it. My mother used to say physog, referring to face. I guess it must have come from that word. Wow, you learn something every year. So irritated, madam, that she suddenly broke into a fury and leapt on my knees. I flung her back and hastened to interpose the table between us. Did people really talk like this? I guess they must have done. This proceeding aroused the whole hive. Half a dozen four-footed fiends of various sizes and ages issued from hidden dens to the common centre. I felt my heels and coat laps, peculiar subjects of assault, and parrying off the larger combatants as effectually as I could with the poker, I was constrained to demand aloud assistance from some of the household in re-establishing peace. I had applesauce tonight with my meal. That's got nothing to do with the story, but yeah. Pork bolognese, if anyone's interested. It was a very nice meal. Right. Yeah. Mr. Heathcliff and his man climbed the cellar steps with vexatious phlegm. Really? Okay. That's what it says. Vexatious phlegm. I don't think they moved 1 second faster than usual. Though the hearth was an absolute tempest of worrying and yelping. I don't get that. The hearth. The place surrounding the fire. Well, did someone throw the dogs into the fire or something? I don't know. Happily, an inhabitant of the kitchen made more dispatch. A lusty dame with tucked-up gown, bare arms, and fire-flushed cheeks rushed into the midst of us, flourishing a frying pan, and used that weapon and her tongue to such purpose that the storm subsided magically, and she only remained heaving like a sea after a high wind when her master entered on the scene. What the devil is the matter? He asked, eyeing me in a manner that I could ill endure after this inhospitable treatment. What the devil indeed, I muttered. The herd of possessed swine could have had no worse spirits in them than those animals of yours, sir. You might as well leave a stranger with a brood of tigers. They won't meddle with persons who touch nothing, he remarked, putting the bottle before me and restoring the displaced table. The dogs do right to be vigilant. Take a glass of wine? No, thank you. Not bitten, are you? If I had been, I would have set my signet on the biter. Heathcliff's countenance relaxed into a grin. Come, come, he said. You are flurried, Mr. Lockwood. Here, take a little wine. Guests are so exceedingly rare in this house that I and my dogs, I am willing to own, hardly know how to receive them. Your health, sir? I'll get a drink in a minute. I'm nearly finished chapter 1. I bowed and returned the pledge, beginning to perceive that it would be foolish to sit sulking for the misbehaviour of a pack of curs. Besides, I felt loath to yield the fellow further amusement at my expense, since his humour took that turn. He, probably swayed by prudential consideration of the follow of offending a good tenant, relaxed a little in the laconic style of chipping off his pronouns and auxiliary verbs. See, they talked about pronouns in those days. It's not just trans people in the 21st century that do it. And introduced what he supposed would be a subject of interest to me, a discourse on the advantages and disadvantages of my present place of retirement. I found him very intelligent on the topics we touched, and before I went home, yes, I was encouraged so far as to volunteer another visit tomorrow. Tomorrow had a hyphen in it in those days. Obviously it doesn't anymore. It's like whom is disappearing and who is replacing it, isn't it? He evidently wished no repetition of my intrusion. I shall go, notwithstanding. It is astonishing how sociable I feel myself compared with him. Which words was that? I was kind of concentrating on the reading. While you answer that, I am going to go and get some water so that I can deal with that request that came in. And also, I would like... oh, yes. I would like you to decide if you want me to continue with chapter 2 during that time. Thank you. Okay, one fresh bottle of water. Okay, so it sounds like I'm reading chapter 2 then, which... Okay, it's a good giggle, isn't it, to be fair. Right. Chapter 2. Yesterday afternoon, set in misty and cold, I had half a mind to spend it by my study fire instead of wading through heath and mud to Wuthering Heights. On coming up from dinner, however, I dine between 12 and 1 o'clock, the housekeeper, a matronly lady, taken as a fixture along with the house, could not or would not comprehend my request that I might be served at 5. On mounting the stairs with this lazy intention and stepping into the room, I saw a servant girl on her knees, surrounded by brushes and coal scuttles, and raising an infernal dust as she extinguished the flames with heaps of cinders. This spectacle drove me back immediately. I took my hat, and after a 4 miles walk, arrived at Heathcliff's garden gate just in time to escape the first feathery flakes of a snow shower. It's a book. I'm gonna guess that. Well, it might well be that the gentry spoke in that way. I don't know. I'm actually looking for when it was written. All it's got is the date at which it was put on Project Gutenberg. Let me see if I can find out when Wuthering Heights was written. It was written in 1847, apparently. I am finding this good fun, though, I must admit. Right. On that bleak hill, top of the earth, was hard with the black frost, and the air made me shiver through every limb. Being unable to remove the chain, I jumped over, and running up the flagged causeway, bordered with straggling gooseberry bushes, knocked vainly for admittance till my knuckles tingled and the dogs howled. Wretched inmates, I ejaculated mentally. You deserve perpetual isolation from your species for your churlish inhospitality. At least I would not keep my doors barred in the daytime. I don't care, I will get in. So resolved, I grasped the latch and shook it vehemently. Vinegar-faced Joseph projected his hand from a round window of the barn. What are you for? He shouted. The maister's down it fold. Go round by the end of Lath if you want to speak to him. If you went to speak to him. It's trying to do an accent here, and I know, yeah. I mean, I don't understand half of that. Is there nobody inside to open the door? I hallooed responsively. There's nobody, missus, and she'll not open Tanya Macchia Flatesome Dins till neat. Why cannot you tell her who? Why cannot you tell her whom I am? Eh, Joseph? Nonny me, I'll hae no hand with it, muttered the head, vanishing. Hey, I'm learning to speak Yorkshire, am I? Useful skill. Useful skill to learn why ejaculate on this mentally. I don't know. The snow began to drive thickly. I seized the handle to essay another trial, when a young man without coat and shouldering a pitchfork appeared in the yard behind. He hailed me to follow him, and after marching through a wash-house and a paved area containing a coal shed, pump, and pigeon cot, we at length arrived in the huge, warm, cheerful apartment where I was formerly received. I don't know if I can do Cornish. I might have to open up the Discord and get you all in here to do various voices in this. Yeah. It glowed delightfully in the radiance of an immense fire compounded of coal, peat, and wood, and near the table, laid for a plentiful evening meal, I was pleased to observe the missus, an individual whose well, that's what I thought you meant until you actually posted his voice, that is. And then I thought maybe that isn't really what you meant, but yeah, okay. An individual whose existence I had never previously suspected. I bowed and waited, thinking she would bid me take a seat. She looked at me, leaning back in her chair, and remained motionless and mute. Rough weather, I remarked. I'm afraid, Mrs. Heathcliff, the door must bear the consequence of your servant's leisure attendance. I have hard work to make them hear me. She never opened her mouth. I stared. She stared also. At any rate, she kept her eyes on me in a cool, regardless manner, exceedingly embarrassing and disagreeable. Sit down, said the young man gruffly. He'll be in soon. I obeyed and hemmed, and called the villain Juno, who deigned at this second interview to move the extreme tip of her tail in token of owning my acquaintance. A beautiful animal, I commenced again. Do you intend parting with the little ones, madam? They are not mine, said the amiable hostess, more repellingly than Heathcliff himself could have replied. Ah, your favourites are among these? I continued, turning to an obscure cushion full of something like cats. A strange choice of favourites, she observed scornfully. Unluckily, it was a heap of dead rabbits. I hemmed once more and drew closer to the hearth, repeating my comment on the on the wildness of the evening. You should not have come out, she said, rising and reaching from the chimney piece two of the painted canisters. Her position before was sheltered from the light. Now I had a distinct view of her whole figure and countenance. She was slender and apparently scarcely past girlhood, an admirable form, and the most exquisite little face that I have ever had the pleasure of beholding. Small features, very fair, flaxen ringlets, or rather golden, hanging loose on her delicate neck. Why are women always supposed to be delicate? I'm not. And eyes, had they been agreeable in expression, that would have been irresistible. Fortunately for my susceptible heart, the only sentiments they evinced hovered between scorn and a kind of desperation, singularly unnatural to be detected there. The canisters were almost out of her reach. I made a motion to aid her. She turned upon me as a miser might turn if anyone attempted to assist him in counting his gold. I don't want your help, she snapped. I can get them for myself. I beg your pardon, I hastened to reply. Were you asked to tea? She demanded, tying an apron over her neat black frock and standing with a spoonful of the leaf poised over the pot. I shall be glad to have a cup, I answered. Were you asked? She repeated. No, I said, half smiling. You are the proper person to ask me. She flung the tea back, spoon and all, and resumed her chair in a pet, her forehead corrugated and her red underlip pushed out like a child's ready to cry. Meanwhile, the young man had slung onto his person a decidedly shabby upper garment, and erecting himself before the blaze, here we go again, no, looked down on me from the corner of his eyes, for all the world as if there was some mortal feud unavenged between us. It's a good job I've got that. I've still got that. This stream is meant for mature audiences, isn't it? Although I'm not really sure that you constitute a mature audience, I have to admit. I began to doubt whether he were a servant or not. His dress and speech were both rude, entirely devoid of the superiority observable in Mr. and Mrs. Heathcliff. Absolutely. His thick brown curls were rough and uncultivated, his whiskers encroached bearishly over his cheeks, and his hands were embrowned like those of a common labourer. Still his bearing was free, almost haughty, and he showed none of a domestic's assiduity in attending on the lady of the house. And I am going to have to find out what that means. Assiduity. Have I pronounced it correctly? Let's have a listen to this.
Assiduity.
Let me put it through the mixer.
Assiduity.
Assiduity. And it means constant or close attention to what one is doing. Yes, of course it does. In the absence of clear proofs of his condition, I deemed it best to abstain from noticing his curious conduct, and 5 minutes afterwards, the entrance of Heathcliff relieved me in some measure from my uncomfortable state. Of course you did, Mr. X. Of course you did. You see, sir, I have come according to promise, I exclaimed, assuming the cheerful, and I fear I shall be weather bound for half an hour if you can afford me shelter during that space. Half an hour, he said, shaking the white flakes from his clothes. I wonder you should select the thick of a snowstorm to ramble about in. Do you know that you run a risk of being lost in the marshes? People familiar with these moors often miss their road on such evenings, and I can tell you there is no chance of a change at present. Perhaps I can get a guide among your lads, and he might stay at the Grange till morning. Could you spare me one? No, I could not. Oh, indeed. Well, then, I must trust to my own sagacity. I'm going to have to look that word up as well. So there we are, we're learning stuff. Sagacity. The quality of being sagacious. It's pronounced like this.
Sagacity.
And sagacious means having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment, wise or shrewd. Not me then.
Sagacious.
Umph! Are you going to make the tea? Demanded he of the shabby coat, shifting his ferocious gaze from me to the young lady. Is he to have any? She asked, appealing to Heathcliff. Get it ready, will you? Was the answer, uttered so savagely that I started. No, that was in the story. That was in the story. The tone in which the words were said revealed a genuine bad nature. I no longer felt inclined to call Heathcliff a capital fellow. When the preparations were finished, he invited me with, Now, sir, bring forward your chair. And we all, including the rustic youth, drew round the table, an austere silence prevailing while we discussed our meal. Well, I guess we all know what austerity means. We've known for the last 15 years or so, haven't we? How long have the Tories been in? I shouldn't go there, I know, but let's move on. I thought if I had caused the cloud, it was my duty to make an effort to dispel it. They could not every day sit so grim and taciturn, and it was impossible, however ill-tempered they might be, that the universal scowl they wore was their everyday countenance. It is strange, I began, in the interval of swallowing one cup of tea and receiving another. It is strange how custom can mould our tastes and ideas. Many could not imagine the existence of happiness in a life of such complete exile from the world as you spend, Mr. Heathcliff. Yet I'll venture to say that surrounded by your family and with your amiable lady as the presiding genius over your home and heart, My amiable lady, he interrupted with an almost diabolical sneer on his face. Where is she, my amiable lady? Mrs. Heathcliff, your wife, I mean. Well, yes. Oh, you would intimate that her spirit has taken the post of ministering angel and guards the fortunes of Wuthering Heights even when her body is gone. Is that it? Perceiving myself in a blunder, I attempted to correct it. I might have seen there was too great a disparity between the ages of the parties to make it likely that they were man and wife. One was about 40, a period of mental vigour at which men seldom cherish the delusion of being married for love by girls. That dream is reserved for the solace of our declining years. The other did not look 17. Then it flashed upon me. The clown at my elbow, who is drinking his tea out of a basin and eating his bread with unwashed hands, may be her husband. Heathcliff Junior, of course. Here is the consequence of being buried alive. She has thrown herself away upon that boor from sheer ignorance that better individuals existed. A sad pity. I must beware how I cause her to regret her choice. The last reflection may seem conceited, it was not. My neighbour struck me as bordering on repulsive. I knew, through experience, that I was tolerably attractive. Mrs. Heathcliff is my daughter-in-law, said Heathcliff, corroborating my surmise. He turned as he spoke, a peculiar look in her direction, a look of hatred, unless he has a most perverse set of facial muscles that will not, like those of other people, interpret the language of his soul. Ah, certainly, I see now. You are the favoured possessor of the beneficent fairy, I remarked, turning to my neighbour. This was worse than before. The youth grew crimson and clenched his fist with every appearance of a meditated assault. But he seemed to recollect himself presently, and smothered the storm in a brutal curse, muttered on my behalf, which, however, I took care not to notice. Tolerably attractive. Yes, I think I could be tolerably attractive. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, yes. Unhappy in your conjectures, sir, observed my host. We neither of us have the privilege of owning your good fairy. Her mate is dead. I said she was my daughter-in-law, therefore she must have married my son. Thank you. And this young man is not my son, assuredly. Heathcliff smiled again, as if it were rather too bold a jest to attribute the paternity of that bear to him. My name is Hareton Earnshaw, or perhaps Harrington Earnshaw. Do we think it's Hareton or Harrington? It's Hareton. What do you think, chat? Is this person going to be a Hareton or a Harrington? I think it's probably more a Harrington, but what do you think? We should have a poll for that, shouldn't we? Well, I think we'll go with Harrington, growled the other, and I'd counsel you to respect it. I've shown no disrespect, was my reply, laughing internally at the dignity with which he announced himself. So, one vote for Harrington. Oh, this is exciting, isn't it? Will the poll result in a resolution? Or will it, in fact, be tied? The excitement is unbearable. There was less excitement when someone was trying to win $1 million on Who Got a Millionaire. Call him Bob. Yeah. Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder showed no respect. Yeah. Well, of course my cats behave, Misty X. What do you expect? Do you expect tide poles? That is reserved for other streamers. I'm afraid. You know. I've shown no disrespect, was my reply, laughing internally at the dignity with which he announced himself. He fixed his eye on me longer than I cared to return the stare, for fear I might be tempted either to box his ears. Box his ears? I haven't heard that said for about 30 years or 40. Or render my hilarity audible. I think that was in an Enid Blyton book. Yeah, all those secret tunnels and secret passages and all that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I began to feel unmistakably out of place in that pleasant family circle. He began. Really? He began? I thought he was out of place way up before the story started, actually. Honestly. The dismal spiritual atmosphere overcame and more than neutralized the glowing physical comforts round me, and I resolved to be cautious how I ventured under those rafters a third time. The business of eating being concluded, and no one uttering a word of sociable conversation, I thought people were not meant to talk when they were eating in those posh places, which this is clearly a posh place. Anyway, I approached the window to examine the weather. A sorrowful sight I saw. Dark night coming down prematurely, and sky and hills mingled in one bitter whirl of wind and suffocating snow. I don't think it possible for me to get home now without a guide, I could not help exclaiming. The roads will be buried already, and, if they were bare, I could scarcely distinguish a foot in advance. Bob, drive these dozen sheep into the barn porch. They'll be covered if left in the fold all night, and put a plank before them, said Heathcliff. So I should have done that in Heathcliff's voice, but I didn't know it was Heathcliff until I came to the end and it said Heathcliff, so it should have been, Harrington, drive those dozen sheep into the barn porch. They'll be covered if left in the fold all night, and put a plank before them. Who's Bob? Bob is Harrington. You told me to call him Bob. I want to see you do one of these, Misty X. I think that would be a damn good laugh. How must I do? I continued with rising irritation. There was no reply to my question, and on looking round, I saw only Joseph bringing in a pail of porridge for the dogs, and Mrs. Heathcliff leaning over the fire, diverting herself with burning a bundle of matches which had fallen from the chimney-piece as she restored the tea canister to its place. The former, when he had deposited his burden, took a critical survey of the room, and in cracked tones grated out, I wonder how you can fashion to stand there, your idleness and war, when all on 'em's gone out. But you're a knout, and it's no use talking. You'll never mend o' your ill ways, but go right to devil like your mother afore you. That is what it says. If somebody can translate that, please do. Come on, Misty X, you must know what it means, surely. You're fairly close to that area, you said so yourself. When I do this again, I'm definitely going to have this up on the screen at the same time as me so that you can see see it yourself, and yeah. Thank you. There we are. Misty X. And that proves that I said it right too, didn't it? I said it right, Governor, didn't I? Oh, is that that's more Cockney than anything else, isn't it? So I was the only one who did not know what I was saying. I think that's what we've established. Yep. You scandalous old hypocrite, she replied. Are you not afraid of being carried away bodily? Whenever you mention the devil's name, I warn you to refrain from provoking me, or I'll ask your abduction as a special favour. Stop! Look here, Joseph, she continued, taking a long, dark book from a shelf. I'll show you how far I've progressed in the black art. I shall soon be competent to make a clear house of it. The red cow didn't die by chance, and your rheumatism can hardly be reckoned among providential visitations. That sounds nice. Let's go down to the pub for a pint and a bag of crisps. Yeah. Anyway, so I've kind of done a London accent. I've kind of done an up north accent or something or other. But I haven't done a Cornish accent. I suppose it's I don't know. Butcher? Butcher? Is that what you think? A Scottish butcher? I don't know. And I don't know what that accent was either. I don't think it was Scottish. Oh, wicked, wicked, gasped the elder. May the Lord deliver us from evil. And that sounded more Irish than anything, I think. It was meant to be my Cornish, but I don't think it worked out that way. Maybe it did because you thought that was the case, so yeah. Thank you. Who said? Oh yeah. No, reprobate! You are a castaway. Be off, or I'll hurt you seriously. I'll have you all modelled in wax and clay, and the first who passes the limits I fix shall. I'll not say what he shall be done to, but you'll see. Go! I'm looking at you. The little witch puts a mock malignity into her beautiful eyes, and Joseph, trembling with sincere horror, hurried out, praying and ejaculating wicked as he went. They used that word a lot in those days, didn't they? In fact, it seems that they used it even more than they do now. I thought her conduct must be prompted by a species of dreary fun, and now that we were alone, I endeavoured to interest her in my distress. Mrs. Heathcliff, I said earnestly, you must excuse me for troubling you. I presume, because with that face, I'm sure you cannot help being good-hearted. Do point out some landmarks by which I may know my way home. I have no more idea how to get there than you would have how to get to London. Take the road you came, she answered, ensconcing herself in a chair with a candle and the long book open before her. It is brief advice, but as sound as I can give. Then, if you hear of me being discovered dead in a bog or a pit full of snow, your conscience won't whisper that it's partly your fault. How so? I cannot escort you. They wouldn't let me go to the end of the garden wall. You! I should be sorry to ask you to cross the threshold for my convenience on such a night, I cried. I want you to tell me my way, not to show it, or else to persuade Mr. Heathcliff to give me a guide. Who? There is himself, Earnshaw, Zillah, Joseph, and I. Which would you have? Are there no boys at the farm? No, these are all. Then it follows that I am compelled to stay. That you may settle with your host. I have nothing to do with it. I hope it will be a lesson to you to make no more rash journeys on these hills, cried Heathcliff's stern voice from the kitchen entrance. As to staying here, I don't keep accommodations for visitors. You must share a bed with Harrington or Joseph if you do. I can sleep in a chair in this room, I replied. No, no. A stranger is a stranger, be he rich or poor. It will not suit me to permit anyone the range of the place while I am off guard, said the unmannerly wretch. With this insult, my patience was at an end. I uttered an expression of disgust and pushed past him into the yard, running against Earnshaw in my haste. It was so dark that I could not see the means of exit, and as I wandered round, I heard another specimen of their civil behaviour amongst each other. At first, the young man appeared about to befriend me. I'll go with him as far as the park, he said. You'll go with him to hell, exclaimed his master, or whatever relation he bore. And who is to look after the horses, eh? A man's life is of more consequence than one evening's neglect of the horses. Somebody must go. Oh, that was Mrs. Heathcliff. Let me try that again then. A man's life is of more consequence than one evening's neglect of the horses. Somebody must go, murmured Mrs. Heathcliff, more kindly than I expected. Not at your command, retorted Harrington. If you set store on him, you'd better be quiet. Then I hope his ghost will haunt you, and I hope Mr. Heathcliff will never get another tenant till the Grange is a ruin, she answered sharply. Hearken, hearken! Shoes cursing on 'em, muttered Joseph, towards whom I had been steering. He sat within earshot, milking the cows by the light of a lantern, which I seized unceremoniously, and, calling out that I would send it back on the morrow, rushed to the nearest postern. Postern. Let's look up that word. I don't know what a postern is. A postern is a back or side entrance.
Postern.
Postern. I guess I was still in Cornish mode. And here we go. Meister, he's stealing the lantern, shouted the ancient, pursuing my retreat. Hey, Nasher! Hey, dog! Hey, wolf! Hold him! Hold him! Oh, so it's Dennis the Menace and Nasher now then. Okay. Yeah. On opening the little door, two hairy monsters flew at my throat, bearing me down and extinguishing the lights, while a mingled guffaw from Heathcliff and Harrington put the copestone on my rage and humiliation. Fortunately, the beasts seemed more bent on stretching their paws and yawning and flourishing their tails than devouring me alive, but they would suffer no resurrection, and as I was forced to lie till their malignant masters pleased to deliver me, then, hatless and trembling with wrath, I ordered the miscreants to let me out, on their peril, to keep me 1 minute longer, with several incoherent threats of retaliation that, in their indefinite depth of virulency, smacked of King Lear. Virulency, extreme harmfulness, has the capacity of a microorganism to cause disease. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, yes. Okay. I didn't know we were suddenly moving towards viruses, but okay. Apparently, viruses have something to do with this text, which is replete with something or other. Oh, yeah. The vehemence of my agitation brought on a copious bleeding at the nose. Ah, here we are. Here's that fisticuffs. And still Heathcliff laughed, and still I scolded. I don't know what would have concluded the scene had there not been one person at hand rather more rational than myself and more benevolent than my entertainer. This was Zillah, the stout housewife, who at length issued forth to inquire into the nature of the uproar. She thought that some of them had been laying violent hands on me, and not daring to attack her master, she turned her vocal artillery against the younger scoundrel. "Well, Mr. Earnshaw," she cried, "I wonder what you'll have again next. Are we going to murder folk on our very doorstones? I see this house will never do for me. Look at the poor lad, he's fair choking. Whisht, whisht, you mustn't go on so. Come on, come in and I'll cure that. There now, hold you still." With the questions at the end, yeah. With these words, you will also have to bring some sort of protection against salivic outbursts. That's what I'm going to call it. Salivic outbursts of saliva for the next session. With these words, she suddenly splashed a pint of icy water down my neck and pulled me into the kitchen. Mr. Heathcliff followed his accidental merriment, expiring quickly in his habitual moroseness. I was sick exceedingly and dizzy and faint, and thus compelled perforce to accept lodgings under his roof. He told Zillah to give me a glass of brandy, and then passed on to the inner room, while she condoled with me on my sorry predicament, and having obeyed his orders where I was somewhat revived, ushered me to bed. So we've managed to get to the end of chapter 2. I think that's good going. How long have I been doing this? An hour and a quarter. I think I can. How long is the next chapter? There's a lot of chapters to this. This is gonna be a fair old stretch if you want me to continue this through to the very end. I do not have time to read chapter 3. It is very, very long. I could make a start on it, but I am kind of thinking that maybe it's good to call it there and rest my voice for the next time. Yeah, we'll call it there then. So, well, I think we've enjoyed this. I do tend to put some of my VODs up on YouTube. Do we think this one counts? And the next time. I've got a new schedule. I posted it on my Discord. Wednesdays and Sundays stay the same. They're music. Monday is going to be a gaming. At the moment, I'm doing Elite Dangerous, and Tuesdays are going to be this. So that's my plan. I intend to keep to a specific time on Wednesdays and Sundays, but Mondays and Tuesdays may vary a bit. They will tend to start between 8 and 9 o'clock because Sarah's got something else that she needs to do at that time. So it makes sense for me to do those streams then, and I'll just fit in with when she needs to do whatever she needs to do. There may be other streams as and when I feel like it. So that's the plan. Also, a community announcement. If any of you knew Kalis from Twitch Sings, his Discord account got hacked. There is now a Kalis underscore V2, which is the real Kalis. So just so you know, I think most people know that now, but in case you were not aware, and you do get a message from Kalis, I understand there's been one especially where he claims to be a programmer and asks you to run a game that he's been writing, which is almost certainly some sort of hacking thing. So don't do that. You're welcome. And yeah, so there we are. I think next time I'll actually have the text on screen as well as me, because I think that will make it a bit more fun. And obviously you'll understand it then, because you don't understand it when I say it, obviously. And let me see. I'm hoping we've got a few to raid out with. So I'm going to have a quick look, because I don't like to just end the stream. So I like to raid out to someone. So let me have a quick look and see who I can do that with, if that's okay. I'm going to raid out to Rusty the Robot. And obviously appreciate it if you can stay for the raid. Thank you for being here. Thank you for enduring my attempts at various accents and all the rest of it. And I'll hopefully see you tomorrow. If not, I will see you whenever you catch me again. Thank you.